Hey everybody, this is going to be the second part of the review. I've already done my in-drive review. As you've seen in the footage in the start of the reel, or video itself. I have my clipboard with me this time. My first overview, I realized that I'm going a little bit too fast. I need to slow it down a bit and follow my actual footnotes. So this is me ad-libbing things, as I didn't write any of this down. This is just explaining what's going on. So I'm going to go over my likes, my little bit of dislikes, which is not much, and the overall how I feel about this machine. So first we're going to start off with the power. The power that this engine, the 3-cylinder turbo, delivers out of this 900 Ace, quite unreal. For only 135 horse, if you don't have the skills to go along with the driving of this machine, you can get yourself in a pickle in a real hurry. So if you're a driver who wants to buy one of these machines, make sure that you understand that 135 horsepower may not sound like a lot, but when you put the power to weight ratio into hand, it's like driving like a 400 horsepower vehicle, rear wheel drive, down an icy dirt road, and you could easily lose control very quick if you don't know how to counteract really quickly back. In saying that, when I picked up the machine, it had the setting for the DPS at max. Now that when max means that, so it takes very little control to turn it left or right. So if I, for some reason, wanted to fishtail the machine, it could make me do a turn really, really quick. But to gain it back, I can oversteer and then lose traction, and understeer and then force myself into a tree, which is something that you don't want. So I personally, because I like a better feel of the actual ground, I like to leave my DPS on minimum in this machine specifically. Every machine is going to have its pros and cons on what you want to do, right? So you have more utility, you're going to want a max because you're doing slower, low turns, etc. But at higher speeds, definitely, I personally prefer a minimum DPS. Great for high-speed adventures. Unbelievable what this thing can do. And it's comfortable at those speeds. Handling at the speeds is very predictable. So even though that you might be not as well-versed in driving a machine with this kind of power at those higher speeds, it's very forgiving. It just plants itself, and it's like, yeah, give me that turn, baby. Yeah, give me that other turn. Just make sure you're doing it in a very well wide area so you don't run into anybody else, and make sure that hopefully you have somebody on each end to block the trail and make sure that nobody's there. The seats. I didn't know how I'd like the seats because, as you can see, I'm a bigger guy. The seats are very comfortable. I'm actually very impressed. They hold me, they hug me really well. I didn't feel at all any discomfort all day long in those seats. Not one bit. I was actually very impressed with them. Can-Am, that's one thing that they're just spot on the seats, always, right away. The headlights, man, those LED headlights, you flick that in high beam and even in low beam, I didn't even think that I needed a light bar. I was actually very impressed. The only issue is, of course, when you get them covered in mud, which right now they have some mud on them, as you can see. I couldn't tell that they had any mud, but like if you get them completely plastered and your machine's not visible at all, then obviously you won't be able to see. That goes for anything, right? You have mud in the way, you can't see. Dirty output, that's what you're gonna get. But those lights, a light bar would definitely like put it right over that edge. But factory lights, the best that I've ever driven factory lights with a machine. Field of view when sitting in the cab, because I'm a taller person, I am able to see around, lower around. I can see my wheels where I need to be. So if there's a big mud hole right here, but I've got a little tiny bit of space off to the side that I can squeak right around it, I can tell where my wheels need to be and able to traverse everything quite well. I got to go back to the headlights real quick. I forgot to mention, so the headlight feature on this that has a switch, the high beam on, and it has an off, but when you click the off, you have to click it twice so that it will turn the lights off completely, And when you start the machine, they're automatically on low beams. So that's a nice feature. Unless you left it on high, then it will stay on high. The dash layout in general is very nice and friendly. The where your tool holder is and your little storage box, it's not a whole lot of room in there, but there's enough. The interior space is quite spacious. Like, two big guys, we had me and my buddy Chris in there, no elbow hitting at all. Like, I couldn't even tell that he was there. Like, I'd have to reach over and hit him. There's quite a bit of room. The cup holders are in a good spot. Just in general, like, if you put a tablet mount right in that middle spot, it's like perfect. Very well organized, and all of your buttons are very user friendly. The only issue with the interior space, because I have very, very long legs, even though I've got the seat not all the way back, because if I'm too far back, then my arms don't reach, so I'm stretched out like that. So I got to be a little bit closer for that. My knee, either this knee here will bump the key, or this knee here will hit where the door area begins to fold. That's not a machine issue. I'm just an oddly grown tall person that has weirdly long legs and not as long as arms. So you can't fault the machine. That's my issue. So if you're about 6'1" and roughly the same type of build, keep that in mind. Make sure you sit in it, make sure you get comfortable with it, and go from there. These tires, these carnivores, 14-inch, 10 wide, all the way around carnivores, they do amazing, man. They really, really plant that machine down. I'm very impressed with these carnivore tires. I was not sold on carnivores before, but when you get carnivores and you get a machine with this kind of power, they're great. The only downside is this machine runs quite high PSI. I think it's 20 front and 26 rear as a minimum, and a 36 rear as a maximum. These tires are rated for that 36 PSI, but can you imagine how much air that is and where that takes away? So if you hit a bump at a lower speed because of that, because your shocks are not going to be able to absorb it, your tires are absorbing your first initial bumps on lower speeds. So it's hitting hard in that sense. So it's not, your shocks are not able to absorb quick enough because your tires are taking all the load. So if you actually own this machine, I'd suggest lowering it. I would try a 15 front combo, 18 rear. I would even dare go down to a 12 front, 15 rear, or 16 rear, and see how that works, because that would definitely bring the comfort more for your lower speed driving, like 30-40 kilometers an hour, and it will still be stable at your higher speeds. But then to be able to compensate for your higher speeds, that's where you can adjust your shocks with allowing it to still be soft but stiffer, so that it will, anyways, you've really got to be on point with the suspension on these things to understand all the little fine details that you can do. Only dislikes, as I mentioned in the last part, no exterior door handle. It's not just a Can-Am thing. Honda has it. I know a few other brands have it. Kawasaki has it. It's just the lack of exterior door handle. Not the end of the world. Yamaha has it also too, now that I'm thinking of it. It'd just be nice, really. I know Can-Am's Trails, Commanders, Sports, and Defenders, some Defenders, not all Defenders, have the exterior one. So, give and take. Now, the steering wheel size. Because I'm a bigger person, I find the steering wheel is a slightly too small. And if it was just like an inch bigger, it'd be like beautiful. But then doing that, my knees would probably hit, and that's probably why it's that slightly smaller size. I'm sure the engineers who Can-Am has probably spent thousands and thousands on made the steering wheel that size specifically for a specific reason. So it is what it is. So overall, my final thoughts, if you were in the market for a sports side-by-side, this Maverick X3 DS model would definitely be on my list. This thing, unbelievable power, great speed. It's undeniably fast. However, it requires a skilled driver to handle it safely, as it can quickly get into trouble if you're not careful. The sound of this stock exhaust, the best sounding machine I've ever heard, especially going at speed. You're just traveling and you just hear that. It's not even just the blow off valve, you just hear everything, the engine, the turbo, everything. It just like I love it personally. It just like makes me want to drive the machine. It doesn't make me want to just stop and sit around. I just want to hop in this thing and drive it for hours and hours on end. Now I wish I had like a solid month with this actual machine and was allowed to fine tune the suspension, like lift up the whole thing, start playing with the shocks and adjusting the different settings and fine tuning it to how I like the machine. That's a time consuming thing. Like you gotta compress and uncompress the shocks, your upper and your lower part of these things. But these Showa shocks are really good. There's so much adjustability to this machine. So if you're looking for a machine that you can fine tune how you drive, so if you're a slower driver and you want pure comfort on slower speeds, 100% what it can do. You just need to take the time and do it, because right out of the gate this machine is set up to go point, straight, go, take a turn super fast. So you gotta take the time, set it up to how you want, or pay somebody to set it up exactly how you want. That's just something that you need to keep in mind with this machine. But I can just imagine if you had a lot of time and really just a lot of time, because that's all that it takes. You don't need to spend any money into that to make it the way that it is. But it's just a personal preference at that point for how I ride. This is a great machine, and it's capable for anybody who's willing to do anything with it. It will go through everything. I went through some fairly like off camber steep routes climbing up a hill, and it didn't care at all. It just point and go. It's kind of like a billy goat. The only one thing that I wish it had is actual fender flares, because as you can see, it's got mud on it, and the slightest little puddle, like you go through a small puddle, this is what happens. Like I did not go mud bogging with this machine at all. There's zero mud that this thing actually really went through, like puddle maybe that big type thing at best. And it just, like the moment you come out of it, just the front tires just throw it all over you. You just got to be careful of that. So you got to go slow out of it so that it doesn't do it. So some fender flares, that's the first mod. If I was doing any mods to this machine at all, that. And then after that, then you can get the front bumper with the winch on it. But if you're definitely on a strict budget, fender flares. Everything else, just fine. You do not need a full front windshield. If you have a helmet that you can put your visor down fully, you don't need that at all. I drove perfectly fine all day long with my filming helmet, which has its own visor to put down in and everything else like that. Not one single tiny bit of issues. The lower doors do not have any inserts in them. That did not bother me one bit. My leg is not completely plastered in mud like you'd think it would be. It's pretty good. It's actually kind of nice. It brings in a nice breeze through the machine. Engine heat coming from the back was not bad at all, especially considering how hot yesterday was. It was brutal, to be quite honest, especially at certain points whenever you're stopping, trying to film things. Like, it was just, the sweat was just unbelievable. So at the end of the day, for 27 grand plus tax and fees and the odd end, whatever it is, like the roof is another $590. I'd buy this thing in a heartbeat, to be quite honest. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful machine. It's not the direction that I'm going with my family and things, so it's not the machine that I personally can buy at this time. But like 6 years ago, if I would have do it all over again, I'd actually honestly probably own one of these in a heartbeat. It's likely very maintenance hungry because of how the suspension is, but you got to give and take, man. You can't have a high horsepower machine and with comfort and not expect some wear parts to happen. This goes for any brand. So on that note, let me know what your thoughts are. Don't forget to please check out Torque Motorsports in Moncton. They are the ones who graciously let us be able to do this, and If you do go in, let them know that Bearded ATVers sent you. Just let any single person in there know. Even if you go buy parts, let them know, hey, I see that you guys are talking with Bearded ATVers. That's great. I like them. I watch them. I watch their stuff. I like all their posts on social media. Just even if you're not in there to buy something, even if you're in there just to, hey, I got a few minutes to kill and you want to talk to somebody, just go mention it. It helps me out. They might treat you a little better. They might give you something sweet in the deal, maybe. I can't guarantee that. I'm just, you know, hey, put my name out there if you don't mind. But I guess on that note, we'll see you later. Thanks.